Hey guys, welcome to Now That's Debatable. This is your host, Fantastic Facade. I am joined, as always, with my co-host, Tribulated Humanist, and we have Bryce coming back on the show. He's been on before. He's back again. Had a good conversation last time, even though a lot of people on Facebook dislike both of us. Seem to have a better conversation kind of here in this setting than we do on Facebook, or that I've seen with people on Facebook. So you're welcome back. No hard feelings from last time. I think it was a good conversation. Welcome to another one. Hopefully this will be a good one as well. Today we're going to be talking about populated sets. Populated sets specifically that they have ranges. And I think it's going to kind of expand a little bit from there. But we will try to keep it focused on that for at least most of the show. So, how's everybody doing?
Doing good.
Chilling, man.
Yo, what was that hand symbol? You throwing up gang signs?
Oh, no, this is the peace sign for, they say this in Hawaii. What it means welcome.
Oh.
Yeah.
Are you from Hawaii?
Yeah.
You culturally appropriating now?
Yeah, I am.
It's Black History Month and you doing Hawaiian stuff? Yes, yeah, it is.
This is black people in Hawaii, bro.
Yeah, okay. Sure. So... Phantom, welcome to the show. I invited a bunch of people. Yahoo again, what up? I'm not gonna call out your real name, even though I know what it is now. Welcome to the show, buddy. We would love to get more on the after show of you guys. It's just that you guys are on like super late sometimes. But anyway, welcome. Hope you enjoyed the episode. If you have questions, feel free to shout them out. We'll do our best to answer. Bryce, without further ado, tell us your premises and conclusions for populated sets having ranges, and we may pause you to get a good definition or two.
No worries.
Yeah. Okay, could you start with the conclusion first? That way I have that in my head, and then we can jump.
So this is an argument that I've used for the existence of supreme being, and basically the argument goes like follow: that all populated sets have ranges, that being is a populated set, therefore there's ranges of being. Now to kind of put a little bit more on that first premise, I would say ranges of supremeness is going to be what the most important range that we talk about.
Well, you said range of supremeness.
Yeah, so supremeness, and then the maximum supremeness would win the title supreme. So
how are you defining supreme?
So let me get into that. So because
Okay.
I know that's going to be the biggest thing, is that how we cash out that term. A little bit of introduction to the argument is it's an ontological argument, but a lot of times when people hear that, they think, oh, the ontological argument, because there's a very famous ontological argument from Saint Anselm.
Ontological arguments is a class of arguments.
Well, good. We're
kind of like cosmological arguments, right?
Exactly.
Axiological arguments, right?
Exactly. There's no one cosmological argument. There's no one. So Anselm's argument is the one, and to be honest, I've never even studied it much because I don't really like it. But it's the one where no greater being can be conceived, and you imagine it, and then that's What's interesting about his argument is that he tries to establish the existence of God and get all the divine attributes like omniscience, omnipresence, omnibenevolence. He tries to get all of that done in a single argument. And that's why I don't think the Anselm's ontological argument is always successful, because I think it tries to do too much, tries to bite off too much, accomplish too much in a single argument. There's
some non sequiturs with it as well. Like for instance, like when it says like greatest, right? Yeah. There's no good definition of that, and he says existence is greater than non-existence. Like in what sense, right? Like is a molecule greater than a banana?
So there's a lot of I've seen some formations of it where it's broken into like something like 27 premises, and 27 premises is just a lot. It's just a lot of runway, and most likely you're going to come up with some stuff that people disagree with. So the advantage of my argument is that it does not attempt to describe anything to do with what supreme being is like. It doesn't try to establish, answer questions about is supreme being omniscient, all powerful, anything like that. It's a much more focused argument, and the only thing that it's really targeting is establishing the fact that supreme being does in fact exist. And so we'll kind of get into it a little bit.
Quick questions.
Yes.
So real quick, and this is, I swear it's not a trap. It's just for the future, in which I may use it as a trap. But right now, it's not a trap. Do you believe in an omniscient being?
So yes. So to put my cards on the table, I am a Roman Catholic, so I believe that Jesus Christ is God incarnate, and that classical theism, ipsum esse, all the divine attributes, immovable, impassible, all loving, all of that. So I get there.
Omnipresent.
I do get there in life, but that the journey of 10,000 miles begins with a single step. And so this is, like, in my mind, the very first step. Gotcha. So it's not
the reason I asked is
the
just
end
because,
of the journey.
Okay, so is omniscience greater than non-omniscience?
Yeah, I would say, like, knowing everything is greater than not knowing anything. But let me get into the argument a little bit, because here's an example. So what I like to do, and I know this will frustrate some people, but I like to use the logic of the argument in a very uncontroversial example, and then we use that same logic to try to apply it to more and more controversial examples until eventually we feel confident using it all the way to the most controversial example. So the example I like to give is the least controversial example would be, if a human exists, a tallest human exists.
Sure. So now we're qualifying greatest, but we're talking about height.
Yeah. So we're saying so if a human exists, a tallest human exists.
And this was kind of the problem with the.
I'd also like to point out one other thing. Not only are we qualifying it with height, but we're also qualifying it with human, which we know exists.
Yeah. Okay. Exactly. So,
all right. Hey, keep going.
Yeah. So we're using the set. So to run through, the set is humans. So if a human exists, a tallest human among human exists. Now,
so the range is height, and the set
the only objections that I tend to get from this one is people will say, well, what if there's two tallest humans? That's totally fine, because if two humans are the tallest, then there's a tallest human 2 times. So a tallest human is still existing. But what's interesting about this argument is it's not going to make any claims about how tall a tallest human is. It's not going to
just that there is a tallest.
And what's funny is that it's not even saying that if a human exists, a taller human exists, because that's impossible, because then we would introduce an infinite progress, like the argument, there's always a bigger fish. Well, that obviously can't be true. There has to be a biggest fish, but yeah.
That's not logically impossible. But go ahead. So
well, that's the other one that we could get to is infinite actualized, but we'll leave it there. So we say if a human exists, a tallest human exists. So that one's pretty uncontroversial. So we could take it to another step that would become more controversial. So for example, if a ninja exists, a deadliest ninja exists. Now, the objection that'll be introduced here now is they'll say, but how do you know what the most deadly ninja is? Are you really?
That's not my objection at all, because that's epistemological. But I can grant the ontology of the proposition.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. See, we are cruising, because you guys are not struggling with there's objections that, man, dude, I'm used to, like, fighting tooth and nail.
Yeah, we're going to grant a lot.
So I would argue that, like, so I don't know what a deadliest ninja would be like. I don't know what it is to be deadlier than other things. All I know is that if a ninja exists, a deadliest ninja exists. So we're good. We're cruising. We are going to be out of here. No, just kidding. This is good. So let's get to the controversial one. So here's the controversial one. So we're going to change the set to being. Now, this is going to be the biggest set possible, because this is going to be the set of everything that exists. So that's going to be the set. So it's the
Can that
biggest
include
set.
Conceptualizations?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, can that include conceptualizations?
No, so I would say the only things that are being have actuality. So like not like mythical things that don't exist, that don't have actuality, like would not be in the set.
So like this is a like wireless speaker. Is this a being? Okay, all right. Okay, so you're using the verb being in the noun being. As there's now I think this is a little problematic, right? Because we're kind of swapping definitions here. Right. So like this. So this is this being as in it exists. It is being. It bees, but it is not a being.
You know, the conjugation of the verb.
The thing I like about this conversation is it always redounds to some amount of pirate talk, because we start saying things be, and I like it. I love it. So.
Okay, but what I'm saying, so if we being, however you use that term, it needs to be consistent. So you can use it in the verb sense or the noun sense. You can't swap, or else it's a fallacy.
Yeah. So the one thing that will make it confusing, and I will I'll put this up front because it does confuse people, is that being is a uncountable noun. So a quick reminder on uncountable nouns would be something like water. So if I had a bucket of water, I could say, here, this is water. Now, but we could also talk about it as a water. Like, so if I put water into a bottle, it's very common to say, oh, here's a water. So it's easy to say a being, but I'm not going to want to say a being. I'm going to want to say being. But I am still referring into it as the noun sense. It is an uncountable noun, but it's still
a being as in an agent, right?
As in something that exists. Yeah. A phenomenon of existence.
All right. So if something that exists, that means that everything's a being.
Yes, everything is being that is existing.
No. You're not is being a being. So a being, so that's a noun. Is being, that's a verb. I'm asking which one are you using?
So I'm always wanting to use it as a noun. I'm just not using the article in front of it. So like if I were saying that is water instead of that is a water. So does that make sense?
It does, but it's not standard in English, because
whenever I say being, I'm always going to be using it in the noun sense. I'm always going to be using it as a noun, but I'm not going to always say a being, because I don't like that artificial delineation. I just say being because it's an uncountable noun, because some things are uncountable nouns.
So by your definition of being,
a being is everything that exists.
Yes. So
does it have to have
agency? Is being. The noun.
Well,
the uncountable noun being.
In your definition, does it have to have agency?
No.
No.
So it just has to exist. Doesn't have to have because like some people would say,
you have hundreds of thousands of little beings all over your face right now.
Yeah,
right.
Right, because your beard exists.
A sunset is being. Gravity is being. Everything that exists.
Sure.
But why aren't my concepts, my thoughts? Why aren't they being? They exist.
So are your thoughts? Okay, so let's say your thoughts get included in. I guess it doesn't really matter if they get included in or not, because they're not going to end up
very problematic for you.
They're not going to end up winning the supreme contest. So if they are existing, well then I guess so let's say we included your thoughts. Your thoughts are being. Okay. If your thoughts are supreme being, then that's what supreme being is, I guess. But I don't think that they're going to win. Does that make sense?
I don't think you realize how problematic that is, because in order for my thoughts to win, I just have to one-up anything that you say with a thought.
Oh, don't worry. I have the supreme being.
I'll let you go ahead and get your argument.
Okay, so let's go through it. I like the objections. I like that we're thinking through it a lot. So the set is being. So a being is a populated set. This is pretty unobjectionable to most people, because we can always use our own personal existence as proof that being is not an empty set. And
so when you say being is a populated set,
now
you're literally talking about everything in existence.
Yes, that anything
the set of everything.
Yeah, which makes it a very unobjectionable premise, is that because the premise is something exists. And so to object to the premise, you would have to exist to object to it. So that one gets really easy to not attack. So then we would just use the fact that all populated sets have ranges. And what's interesting about ranges is that every populated set has every range. So like if a butterfly exists, a sexiest butterfly exists, a dumbest butterfly exists, and now you could say, well, what if every butterfly is equally dumb? Like, I don't know, maybe they are. I make no qualms about the superlatives, the essences of them, only the existence of every superlative in every populated set. And so what makes people frustrated with the argument is that they feel like it's cheating because we get straight to there is supreme being, but then I describe nothing but the existence of it, and we have nothing on the essence.
So when you say supreme, what does that mean for she said highest?
Yes, highest, unqualified.
In what sense?
Okay,
because like Snoop Dogg may qualify here.
So
you know what I'm saying? Like, did you get that joke?
I didn't hear you.
I said, like, what do you mean by highest? Because, like, Snoop Dogg might qualify here.
Yeah, people.
Right, sure.
All the time.
And that was the thing, because it can't be unqualified. So if I say a elephant is greater than a cheeseburger, like in what sense? I want to have to qualify it. If I say it weighs more, then sure.
Yeah,
but then if I say it's tastier, well then okay.
Because people could introduce this thing sooner than I think people think. So, for example, you could say, if a rock exists, a biggest rock exists. Now, people could say,
now we're qualifying it, right? Because we're talking about space. What's occupies the most space?
Biggest could be in a couple different ways, because you could say biggest by mass, biggest by volume.
Well, no, mass isn't the biggest.
There's all these different ways.
No, but that wouldn't be the biggest.
All I know
mass.
is that if a rock
No, hold on. Let's be very specific with our words here. All right. So, like, if we were talking about biggest, it wouldn't be the most massive, right? It would be the one that occupies the most space, right? That may or may not masses. No, it's not a maybe. That's what we're talking about. Larger. What it would be like
so
a
big
beach
is
ball.
Always volumetric. Okay.
A beach ball, an inflated beach ball is bigger than a basketball, but it's not more massive.
Welcome, Canadian neighbor, to the chat.
So let's be very specific, right?
Yeah.
Because you said unqualified greatest.
Yeah.
I think that is incoherent.
So
in order to say that it is the greatest, you have to qualify it. If I say that I am greater than Michael Jordan, and you say, what do you mean? I say unqualified.
So
like we have to qualify. There's some ways I am greater than Michael Jordan.
Yeah. So you're greater.
But you have to qualify it first.
Yeah, because he's not you and you are. Yeah, I get
yes,
that.
We'd have to qualify it.
So here's my thing on that is that, like, you could say that I really don't think you do, and here's why. So, for example, if we were to take this to the level of pure variables, and I were to say, if an x exists, an x with most y among x's exists. I know that's true, even though I know nothing about y and nothing about x. So knowing anything about x or anything about y isn't really required for me to know the certainty of the argument.
Yeah, so we're throwing epistemology out the window, but you still have to qualify it.
Yeah, I could know nothing about supreme being and still know supreme being exists. because being is a populated set.
No,
But you have to qualify it. Like you don't.
In order to say that something is supreme, you must
X.
define.
Now I will.
No.
I can't.
Hold on.
I will.
You must
I will
define
put
what
some meat on
supreme
here
is.
because I can, but I would say that you don't have to.
No, I would say you have to define what supreme is in order to say something is supreme.
No, I really don't to know that it's true because I don't need to define the variable y to know that statement's true. If an X
you
exists,
do,
an X
because
is most
here's
y
the
among
problem.
X.
Because that answer can be anything that I want it to be. Ready?
Yeah.
Like so that's problematic. So like there cannot be a single supreme being if it's anything I want it to be. Because here's the argument. Ready? Okay. I say supreme being is the animal that's in this house.
Yeah. So
there's one of those.
Your
it's a
subjective thought about what supreme being is,
but it's all subjective. That's the whole problem. You have to pick.
Yeah. So everything is objective, and then my thoughts about it are subjective. So the existence of supreme being is objective. My thoughts about what is supreme being are totally subjective.
So what I'm saying is, when you talk about supreme, you're going to have to qualify, and that's going to necessarily be arbitrary. So tell me this: I'm gonna give you a list of things that's in a set. I'm gonna give you my set. I want you to tell me what's the greatest. All right.
Now, but that's not my argument. You could say, here's 30 people, and if I was blind and I couldn't tell you,
no. We're throwing epistemology out the window. Just tell me what would be the method. All right. Okay. All right. So 4 things. Right. We have Karl Marx.
Okay.
A hydrogen atom from the Andromeda Galaxy.
I like it.
A dragon's tail.
Sweet.
In the novel Moby Dick.
Okay. Which is the greatest?
Yeah. What's the greatest? Rank them.
I don't have to be able to rank them to know that if
tell me which one's the greatest then.
The supreme being exists.
Which one's the most supreme? Give me the most supreme.
But see, you're putting on me like some idea that I have to know anything about a tallest person or a biggest rock or.
But what I'm saying is, if we don't have to know who the tallest person is, but there is an objective way that you could measure that.
Yeah, just because you don't know who that person is.
Well,
right. Just because you don't know who that is, we could change the definition. Right now, we can say tallest is from the feet to the top of the head, to the top of the crown. We could change it from the shoulders. But what I'm saying is, you have to qualify it. So you're saying it's unqualified.
I don't. So you're saying I have. Okay. So here's the thing. You're saying you're confusing. There's two things. There's the existence of supreme being, and there's the essence of supreme being. So
what is this essence?
That's I don't. So again, I'm not making any arguments about the essence of supreme being.
No, I'm going to cut you off right there again because we're going in this circle. I'm going to cut you off again. Sorry, it's just that we're going in this circle, and it's not going to get us any further until we.
I can help us get a little further because trust me.
Okay.
So give me one tiny little bit.
When you say that you don't need to know anything about the tallest person that exists, this is true. You don't need to know their name. You don't need to know how tall they are. You just need to know that every other person is shorter than them.
Well, yeah, exactly. So that's what you know that means.
And by that, we're using a term that you and I agree upon. The person with the greatest height. That's what we're saying. You and I are saying and agreeing upon the supreme being when it comes to measuring their height is the tallest person.
Yeah. So
you don't need to know anything about that person in order to come to the conclusion that they are the tallest. You just need to know that everyone else is shorter than them, right?
Yeah.
But if you don't qualify supreme being here, if you refuse to do so, then there is any scenario, and this is where I was going earlier, that you could put and alter the supreme being because you can come up with an infinite number of scenarios in which something becomes supreme. Like, who's the most supreme person that's co-hosting this podcast from this generic geographical area?
So
I'm the only one. I have to be the most supreme.
No, we have to remember what the definition of an atheist is. The definition of an atheist is not someone who believes in God but doesn't believe they're very powerful. That's not an atheist. the definition of an atheist is not somebody who believes God exists but is indifferent. That's a deist. We're not saying an atheist is someone who believes God exists but is evil. That's an anti-theist. Okay? So the atheist position, the only thing the atheist says is that God does not exist. So the question is not, what is God like? The question is not, what is the essence of God? The question is not, why does God do bad things, or why does God allow bad things to happen to good people? The only question that is within the scope of the atheist is, does God exist? And so anything besides that question, now let's say we agreed. So what we would want to do here is we could say, look, I agree that supreme being exists. But the question, the next logical question is, well, what is supreme being like? And then that's when
no, that's not the next logical question. It's not mine. My next logical question is, what do you mean by supreme? Because when we're talking about height, how Facade was able to give you an objective definition of what height would.
Yeah, we're saying we know that if being is a populated set, then there is a most supreme being. So we just ask, well, what's supreme being like?
No, that's not what you would ask.
That's not the question you would ask. You would ask how you define supremacy.
Because if you were to put, so here's the thing. So if you were to put me and Facade in a set, you could say, and you would say, I'm supreme. You would have to ask in what sense. If you could say, oh, I'm taller, then, or you're just define the supremacy by whose skin whose skin is the darkest, then you could do it that way. But you have to qualify it. It makes no sense to say, but it makes no sense to say I'm greater than Facade without qualifying it. So the next logical question is, when we talk about something is more supreme than others, we have to know in what sense. Because if you say something's the great supreme, you're saying it's more supreme than everything else. I'm asking in what sense?
That's the downstream inquiry that comes from accepting that supreme being exists. So I accept.
You can't accept. Here's my problem. I can't accept your supremacy unless you define it. Because if you just say something is more supreme than something else, in what sense are you referring to it? Because I have no idea how to judge its supremacy.
Words, I have subjective thoughts about them. But the word either refers to something that objectively exists or doesn't. So, for example, let's say this. If a flupperter exists, a most quasi-na exists among them. Now, maybe those words don't actually map on to anything in reality. Maybe those things, because I just made them up, they don't exist, and so they point to nothing. So the word supreme,
I would say that about what your argument is going.
The word supreme either points to something or it doesn't. And so the question is, well, what does it point to?
But that's the thing. You're not pointing supreme to anything. In a sense, where we're talking about the tallest person, we're pointing supreme to height, right? If we're talking about the heaviest person, we will be pointing supreme to weight. You're saying you're not going to.
So, for example,
supreme in what?
We could say, let's say, supreme in power. So, if a being exists, being most supreme in power exists.
Okay, but now we're going to have to define power and what.
Right, that's what I was going to say. Like, government power, strongest bench press. Like,
this is what I would call the retreat into nominalism, where you're going to just say, well, any word I define, you'll just say you don't know what that means.
No, that's not what we're doing.
If you define it as power,
because you said power. What I'm saying is that has broadness to it as well.
Let's say for power,
hold on, stop. But hold on. So in one sense, I am more powerful than Joe Biden. I guarantee you I can bench press more than him.
Yeah, especially Joe Biden. You could probably...
80-year-old man. Okay, but in it, when we talk about influence, we're talking about power in another sense. So the problem, so when you use supremacy and you said supremacy is now pointing to power, you're pointing one ambiguous term to another ambiguous term.
But it's not ambiguous. We'll say for power is the ability to author change. And then you'll say, well, what do you mean by author change? And But the thing is that I don't need to define the term at all to know it's true. Because no, I don't. Look, are you going to disagree with the variables? If an x exists, an x with most y among x's exists. That's true.
There doesn't
now you
that an x with
but
y
now you
exists.
qualified it.
I didn't qualify anything. I gave you two variables.
You said the x with the most y. So now we could just measure how many y's the x's have. That will be
if you just say like a supremacy exists and you don't give it any attributes, there's no way to measure it.
I don't need to. I don't need to.
Look. If you take two x's and we're saying supremacy is about how many y's it has. What I would do is I'd line up the x's and then count the y's. That would tell me which one's the greatest. Yeah. And as long as I don't find another x with more y's, I know that this is the supreme x.
Yeah, but you don't, but your ability to do that isn't even continued. Like you could not know anything about x's or anything about y's to know that. Yes. True. That's why it's the beauty of a general formula.
Yeah, so yes, as long as you're qualifying what you mean by greatest or what you mean by supreme, and you're doing that in your analogies, but you failed to do it with the actual argument.
I feel like you could do because an atheist is just someone who doesn't believe God exists, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what an atheist is. Wow. So what if we were to say, so what's God? And then the atheist would try to give a definition, and then I could say, well, what's that? And you could just say, well, you don't know what an atheist is.
But that's not what we're doing. That's not what we're doing. So you gave your analogy. No, you said X with the most Y. No, that's not what we're doing. No, it's not. Because you talk about when you said X was the most Y.
Yeah,
that wasn't. I didn't. But here's the thing. I didn't keep going. I didn't keep asking questions.
Yeah,
right?
You don't need to.
Yeah, because it was an exact specific criteria.
Yeah.
Supremacy is not that. It's not pointing to anything. And then you pointed it to power, which is slightly less ambiguous.
Okay. Well, then let's try another one. If a being exists, a being with the most necessity exists, the least amount of contingency, the most necessity. And that's hyper specific. That is not ambiguous at all. So if you say, well, no, and everything, yeah. So it's so strange that there's this resistance to accepting this simple conclusion. Like, because let's say this. Give me one thought. All
right.
So at this point, let's say I was hyper motivated to say, well, I really don't want to believe in a God. All you would have to do is say, yes, there's a supreme being, and it's the quantum foam, or it's the universe itself, or it's fate, or it's something that causes everything. But it's not, it doesn't love you, it doesn't care about you. I mean, there's a million things you could say. But to just say, no, there is no supreme being, well, that can't be true, because being is a populated set, and populated sets have ranges.
All right.
And
So
you don't know what the word means.
Here's the thing. No. Here's the thing. So when you make a proposition, right? Yeah. The proposition, and I don't have to go back to the last conversation, but for me, I accept the correspondence theory of truth. So the proposition is true if it maps to reality, right?
Yeah.
Now, when you talk about something being more supreme than the other, you're not mapping supreme to anything.
I don't need to map it. It is there.
No, it's not. It just doesn't exist. The word doesn't have some sort of intrinsic value. You have to qualify that. Okay, if I say blurps exist.
Blurps, okay, so the word blurps either maps onto something in reality or it doesn't. Either way, I know that if
but you don't know a greatest possible. No. But if you don't know a greatest blurp exists,
I don't. Well, yeah. So if
you wouldn't. You don't know if it exists at all. It either exists or it does not exist.
Well, that's why the
so it may not exist.
If a unicorn exists, a biggest unicorn exists. But I don't know if a unicorn exists, so I don't know.
But we would qualify what biggest is, and we're talking about biggest is what occupies the most space.
Let me go with an example.
I could qualify supreme in a million ways.
Can I go with an example to make it really clear why we're having a problem here? Because I think I can do this. And I think I can get us very close to the same page.
You're pretending that if an X exists, an X with most Y doesn't exist. And once
no, we didn't. No. Hold on.
Stop. Triple A, just let me go with my example.
That is a lie.
Fundamentally a lie. Let me go with my example.
No.
Let me go with my example. That's just a bold-faced lie. But let me go with my example. Triple A, stop. Let me go with my example, please. Do you think red exists?
Do I think red exists?
Yeah, like kind of like the color of my shirt. I would call this a burgundy, but red.
Do colors exist? Maybe. I don't know.
No, but red exists for sure.
My experience of redness exists, but I don't know. I don't know if redness exists.
Why not?
Well, because like there are things that just don't exist that some people think do exist. So, for example, like the number 2, it doesn't exist. It's just a symbol that points to actuality or that points to potential. So, does red exist?
Red is part of the electromagnetic spectrum. It's a specific wavelength of.
Well, yeah, but if you say like the electromagnetic spectrum, I'd say that does exist.
Well, I'm asking.
Red is part of that.
Red is part of the electromagnetic spectrum.
Red exists.
Does red exist? Well, red's a color, and the color is only perceived in my mind. So red might. I don't know.
Red. No.
Red is a reflection of light within the electromagnetic spectrum that falls within a certain wavelength.
Okay, so red exists.
Okay.
Then.
What's the most red thing?
I don't know.
Is there a most red thing?
Oh, if a red thing exists,
a red thing exists. Like red exists, therefore there is a supremely red thing.
The supremely red thing, yeah, there is.
And how would you measure that?
I don't need to measure it. In fact,
so
I can't, to be honest.
It can't be measured.
No.
Yes, you can.
The essence of the knowledge of an existence of a thing doesn't ensure the essence of a thing. So, for example,
you can measure red, and you can do this with colorblind tests. Colorblind people can pick out red. Machines can pick out red by just measuring the amount of energy that's coming from it.
But again, you can't measure. Okay, we know we all agreed a tallest human exists. However, you cannot measure a tallest human. It's literally impossible.
You said it's impossible to measure.
It's impossible to measure the tallest human.
You'll never know that you're looking at a tallest human, because let's say you say, well, the tallest known human, but then you're always going to have that asterisk that you're saying, look, we only know of a human who, but you don't know if there's a parallel universe with taller humans. You don't know if ancient aliens took humans to another planet and there's taller humans on other planets in the galaxy. So you can never say, well, I know how tall a tallest human is. You'll never know. Okay, knowledge is justified true belief, and you'll never be able to justify that.
Okay, but I thought we were throwing out knowledge for this argument.
We're talking about
ontology.
No. But hold up. If we're talking about a range, and for most people's argument, and this is just ludicrous that I have to clarify. If I said, would it help if I said that the range of humans would include current living in our version of Earth? Would that help you? So because then it's a very hyper-specific version of humans, and we could undoubtedly measure the tallest person. As a matter of fact, we could do it quite easily.
Yeah, if you were to narrow the set
we know his name.
Yeah, if you were to narrow the set down to humans that I know of, then yeah, there's a tallest known
not humans that you know of, just humans on Earth. I could do it with humans on Earth, and I don't even have to it's not even that hard.
How many humans are on Earth?
About 8 billion. Problem solved. Let's assume there's 8 billion. You don't have to measure 8 billion of them. You know how? You could really narrow it down because we know people above 7 foot exist and not many of them. So all you do is you say everybody that's above 7 foot tall, you get them in a room, and then you put a tape measure up. Problem solved. That's literally how you measure the tallest human.
Tribes in the Amazon. It's like, but anyways, so if you think you could know with 100% certainty how tall the tallest
that's not what he said. He didn't say 100% certainty. No.
I said I could measure the tallest human.
What was the question?
I said I could measure the tallest human.
No, you can't.
I can measure the
You
tallest
can't.
living human.
Knowledge is justified true belief. You will never justify the knowledge that you are measuring the tallest human. You could never know
I
that.
could do it with the current tallest living human.
But hold on. We didn't say that we could know that we're measuring the tallest human. We're just saying we could measure the tallest human.
Yeah,
you're saying you couldn't do
it.
it.
You could luck into it, I guess.
It wouldn't be by happenstance. I mean, but you can look at somebody, just like he was saying. Yeah. You could. There's not a lot of people over 7 foot. You can not a lot of people over 7'5".
I'm saying is that, but the knowledge of the height of the tallest human is totally irrelevant to the existence of the tallest human. The existence of Supreme Being and the essence of Supreme Being are totally separate. You don't need to know one to know the other.
Okay, sure.
It's
but
problematic in the sense that you're saying this, like, supremacy doesn't have a definable measurement.
Oh, it does. It does. We could go into it.
But you said it's
unqualified.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then therefore it can't have a qualified measurement.
No. So okay. So here's the most
the problem you said is that, like, you equated the supremacy and power, right, earlier, right? And if you define powerful as the person who can lift the heaviest object, right? But then that person gets thrown in prison somewhere by someone that's in political power, right? So now that person can't lift anything heavy because there's nothing for them to lift, because someone with more power than them put them in a place of no power.
I mean, you're dealing with beings among beings that are so impowerful that they're just not even in consideration. It's like the people who are 2 feet tall. You don't even need to measure them to know that they're not the tallest people. You just know because there's way.
Well, yeah, because tall is very specific.
Yeah,
power is
so very specific.
You said what's very specific?
Is going to be highest, and all of the highest.
But highest is
highest.
Like highest isn't
regard?
Specific
in every regard. Because look.
Okay. All right. Here we go. Here's the problem with that, and this is where I was going.
Right. I got a question for you. No, hold on. Yeah. I got a question for you. Right. So God, can he sin?
So okay, this is moved.
No, hold on. Can you answer my question? Can you answer my question?
The topic is, does Supreme Being exist?
Can you answer my question? So, can you answer my question?
Can God sin? No.
All right. Hold on. Stop. Hold on. But then it's not in every regard, because I consent.
Yeah.
So I'm greater than God.
No, okay, because you're confusing the direction then. So you're saying the highest.
Oh, so we're going a direction here because.
Yeah.
And what direction is that? How is sin? How is sin not higher than the absence of the ability to sin? How are you measuring this here?
In being, so like the more you sin, you actually are being less and less and less.
Oh, you mean the more I sin, the less I am existing. Because you said being is so I can sin to the point where I no longer exist, or somehow my existence.
Yeah, it diminishes you. Yes. So like
it diminishes my existence.
Mm-hmm. Just like the.
Do you think that Hitler was diminished existence before he committed suicide in a basement?
What's up?
Do you think that Hitler's existence was diminished before he committed suicide in a basement?
So was Hitler?
Because I would say he was a pretty sinful guy. Like, I'm not a Christian, but if I was going to point to somebody as being sinful, I'd probably say the guy that murdered 6 million people.
His humanity by being an authoritarian mass murderer?
I'm not asking did he diminish his humanity. I'm asking did he diminish his existence.
Yeah, his being.
So Hitler was less of existing when he committed suicide in a basement but when he was a child. He existed less as an adult.
Okay. So you're the whole argument is that you're saying, look, I'm going to just skip town on the existence question, hop over to the essence question, and
we're not talking about essence. We're really just trying to qualify what you mean by supreme, right? So I don't need to know the essence of that being, right? I just need to know how are you measuring supreme. If we were to say the tallest person, I don't need to know what the essence of that person is. I don't need to know anything about them. Just that the tallest person exists. All right.
Okay,
but
let's try a middle one.
A middle one?
A middle case. So let's say if a painting exists, a most beautiful painting exists. I don't know how to define beauty. I don't know how to measure beauty. I don't know enough about beauty.
So let's not use beauty because you think
anything.
no. Let's not use beauty because you think it's subjective, and
I think
we
everything's
don't.
objective.
Yeah, and we don't. So like you use something that we would agree that's subjective. Like you said a height. I thought that was a good one. You even got very broad and said the most YX. Right,
Yeah.
which is something that you could actually measure that, right? You could say
no, you can't measure the variable. I mean,
well, you
don't
can,
know what it is.
Once you define
what
Y,
variable
you don't even know what Y is.
Well, when you say X, Y,
you
talking
don't
about
know
on
what
the
X is.
axis, right? Like on the axis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you can easily measure that.
But you don't need to know any of the data on the plot to know it.
This X is more
Appreciate
Y than this X.
So if you were okay, here's how I imagine it. If you were truly impartial and you were, let's say, just going wherever the truth laid you, you would say, yeah, I agree with you. If a being exists, a most supreme being exists. And the question just becomes, well, what's supreme? And then you could have that downstream conversation. But you're stopping before you even get to that because you're pretending that supreme being doesn't exist. Like, could if you were to be asked, does supreme being exist? Would you say yes or would you say no? I would say yes.
I would say depending on how we define supreme, it exists, but it would be contingent upon that definition of supremacy.
Right, that's what I was gonna say. I have to know what you mean by that.
Because if this is why, and Bryce, let me get through the whole thing. Why this is such a pointless statement to make in the way you're making it. Because if we define supreme in any method or manner, right, then I can put by my defining it so broadly or specifically as to my choosing, I can make any being supreme.
Right. You can say that the being that's most horny. That wouldn't even be your God anymore.
Right. I want the being to be an animal that can jump the highest per its size. Right? Now, your God doesn't fit that definition.
So I would say that that's an inaccurate definition of supremacy.
Then please define it for us, because that's what I've been asking you to do for the past 20 minutes.
Yeah, because we're moving past. We've already accepted that God exists, and now we're just saying, well, what does God like?
No. I haven't accepted that God exists.
You don't believe supreme being exists, so that
I'm asking you to define
supremacy about supreme being until we agree he exists.
I don't know what you mean. Just like if you were to say that if you were to ask me if I believe that the tallest person exists, I could say yes, I believe that only because I know what tall means.
And he knows that people exist.
Know what tall means, you could know that a tallest person exists.
Right. Let's say no. But here's the thing: you say supremacy. I don't know what you mean by that.
But you don't need to know that it exists.
I do need to know that. I can't agree.
I do not understand. So, for example, let's say if a frog exists, a raddest frog exists. I don't know what radness is. I don't know anything about being rad, what radness would be. I don't know how to measure radness. I don't know anything about it. I really, truly don't. But I know that if a frog exists, a raddest frog exists. So the existence of that raddest frog, I accept. Now the downstream conversation can be, well, what would a raddest frog be? Blah, 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 whatever. But
it'd be arbitrary however you define it.
Supreme being exists. What are we even talking about? Define what? Define the thing you don't believe exists.
Okay, so all right. So if we don't qualify it, then I could be the supreme being.
No. So you could not be.
Yes, I could. Because in order to say I'm not the supreme, no, hold on. In order to say that I'm not the supreme being, you would have to qualify it.
Yeah, this is an essence question, not an existence question.
In what sense is Facade more supreme than I am?
So I am happy to go into the essence of supreme being and talk about that. But I'm just putting on the record that you guys are really strangely pushing back on the existence question. But that's okay.
No, we're not.
Here's the problem. I'm perfectly fine with existence and being. My problem, and I'm fine
Uh-huh.
with you saying that there's a tallest being or a fattest being or a shortest being, because you're giving a qualifier in which I know what these things mean when you specifically say them. And by the way, you're wrong when you say that even if I don't know what they are, that I could say that, because that's not true. And I'll give you an example. No, okay, you ready? How much do you know about nuclear fusion?
Nothing. So
Nothing.
this will be
Great.
great. So
that's exactly how much I need you to know about it. In nuclear fusion, uranium-235 bonds more covalently than all other uranium forms. It's the most supreme fusion source. Can you say that for sure, knowing nothing about nuclear fusion?
You're not using my argument. So let's use my argument.
No, but
So
it's directly analogous.
I don't know.
You said you
You
don't know.
don't
Right?
know. That's the
You
point.
said you don't know, right?
That is
How
the
can
point.
you know it's supreme? There is a supreme nuclear fusion source, right?
So look,
There's
That's
a
the entire point.
Yeah.
nuclear
You don't
fusion happens, right? And
you
there's a
didn't use my
source for
argument.
it.
You're attacking a total straw man. Okay.
No. Bryce, you're not listening.
Frame it in my argument. Say,
Okay, I'm framing it in your argument. Just listen to me.
If a uranium exists, does a
No.
bondy of uranium
Listen
exist?
to the argument,
Yes.
Bryce. Just pause a minute and let me use the same argument. I promise I will.
Okay.
A fuel for nuclear fusion exists.
Love it.
Therefore,
Yeah, I'm loving it.
a supreme fuel for nuclear fusion exists.
Yeah. True.
And you
the
can know
superlative of your
and you can know
populated
nothing.
set
You know
exists.
nothing
Yeah.
about that supreme fuel.
I don't need to know anything about it to know that the superlative of the populated set exists. Absolutely. I don't need to know anything to know that the superlatives of populated sets exist.
Here's
So
the
I don't know.
here's the
I mean,
problem,
it's not
Bryce.
hard.
Here's the
You
problem,
have to
Bryce.
qualify that.
No, I don't.
What am I using the nuclear fuel for? Fusion, right?
Right.
So if I
'cause we're talking
say it's best for fusion, now you have a qualifier. If I say it burns the fastest, now you have a qualifier. But if I say the most supreme nuclear fuel exists, you cannot know what I'm talking about, and you cannot you cannot be specific, and you cannot point to the fuel that is
I can know the
best.
existence is certain, yes. So for example,
No, you can know nuclear fuel exists. That's it.
well, I don't. So again, it always begins with the if premise at the beginning. So if you're saying if a blank exists and that's a set, and you're saying so you populated a set, then all of the superlatives of that set exist, and that's just a mathematical certainty, and I have no problem accepting that.
Here's the problem with that, Bryce, is that you're giving something that has no definitive attribute. You're just saying something is the best. The best being exists. Well, how do you define best? If we can't do in order to define something as best, it needs to be better. It needs to be better than another being. You need to know what you're comparing it to in order to have that superlative. You do. That is how superlatives work in English.
Okay.
I just need to know that it is a superlative.
Could you
That's all I
define?
need to know.
Can you tell me, like,
Let's say there was only.
can you tell me?
Mhm.
Can you tell me which one is greater, 3 or 15?
I can't tell you which one's greater. Oh,
Why not?
Why aren't you able to?
15's a bigger number, so I guess maybe.
Okay, so now, this is the point, right? So now, once we qualified it, you were able to tell me which one's bigger because 15 is larger than 3.
That's the essence of the numbers.
Okay, but I don't want you to qualify it because 3. I want 3 is actually bigger.
3's bigger.
Yes,
3 is greater.
I'm sorry, not bigger. I'm sorry, greater. It's more. 3 is more supreme than 15.
Okay.
Okay, you agree with that?
Do I agree that 3 is more supreme? No, I don't have any. I'm agnostic about it. I don't have a belief one way or the other.
Why? Okay, why are you agnostic about that?
Because I don't think numbers exist, so I'm not that interested in them.
Okay, here's my fingers, right?
Yeah.
All right.
4.
Okay, No, I'm not. That's number 4. I'm just showing you my fingers. Right. All right. Which one is the greatest finger?
I don't know. I don't know if there's a greatest finger.
What if I said?
But you said you could know without knowing anything about them.
Well, then I suppose your middle one would be.
Okay, but now if I don't define it,
then I know the essence of the essence of a greatest finger. I don't know the existence of a greatest finger. I do know.
How about this? If I was to define greatest in a sense by, I'm describing greatest by a set of properties, and none of my fingers have those properties, you wouldn't have a greatest fingers, right? Let's say I said the greatest finger is the one with the most alligators. Tell me which one's the greatest.
So that's an excellent question. So
now the greatest finger does not exist.
Well, no, it does. So every finger would be a greatest finger because every finger is equally not that great. And so they all tie. So it'd be like if the range is 0, then every member of the set is a superlative, if that makes sense.
Because you're saying,
like, for example, here's a good concrete example.
They have the equal amount of alligators.
Which is 0. So if a triangle exists,
the problem is even when defining it this way, Bryce, you're still giving an example of things that must or must not exist. Like for instance, in the finger example, right? Just because like none of his fingers have alligators, therefore they're all equally great. Now, they're all equally great. So by being, unless you're willing to give it some sort of definition on what we can agree upon, then all beings are equal.
No, so we're gonna have
because otherwise, like it's the finger problem, right?
Right.
I'm equal to God because we didn't define.
Let's say if we could find a little bit of agreement here. So I think it's unobjectionable to say that there's 2 questions. That it is, does God exist and what is God like are 2 different questions. Could we agree to that?
Yeah, those are 2 different questions.
I agree.
Yeah, see? So the question, like, is there a tallest person and how tall a tallest person is are 2 different questions. So I'm going to be prepared to acknowledge here. So that when I say the existence of supreme being is certain, I understand that my answer to the existence question does not shed very much light on the essence question. And so then naturally, the essence question is going to be what people want to know about. So people are going to say, what is supreme being like? And I agree with that. I agree.
That's not what we're asking. We're not asking what the supreme being is like. We're asking, what do you mean by supreme? Because if you were to tell us what you mean by supreme, I could look at other things aside by the supreme being, and I could actually structure them in some sort of order. Like if you were to say the supreme being is that which is the tallest, right?
Supreme.
Right. Yeah, that's the most supreme. It's just the tallest. We can start ranking people. We can say the most supreme is the fattest, right? And we can start ranking people. But like now when if you don't qualify that, we're kind of just stuck.
So we want some essence of what okay, so let me look again. So the question
not the supreme being, but supremacy
supreme. So just not even the being part. So just the word supreme. So the question is,
that's what we've been asking the whole time.
Okay, I'm with you. So we could say, does supreme exist, and what is supreme like? And it sounds to me like we really want some essence of what supreme is like, and we can give that. I just really like to make sure that people are realizing that we have gone way past the question of does supreme being exist to what is supreme being like.
No.
I'm happy
we're not asking
problem.
What the supreme
Because
being is
if you, unless you qualify supreme, then when we say the most supreme being exists, it might not be anything that anybody would identify as a god.
Agreed. That's a good argument.
Right. So that's the problem, because unless you qualify, it may not be. Nobody will call this T-shirt a god. Let's move.
So I'm with you. So we say, look, we could concede. We say, look, being is a populated set. Populated sets have ranges. So yes, I accept that supreme being exists. However, maybe supreme being is not that great. And
no. Like here's the problem.
Rational argument to make.
No. And let me pause you, and I think I can clarify. Just let me go with it for a second here.
I'm with you.
That populated sets have ranges. Being is a populated set. By saying anything further than that, we're narrowing or defining or being contingent upon things within the set. If you give me no more information, then it's just like the problem with the fingers and alligators problem. Because by saying that a supreme being exists without giving it any contingency is the same thing as saying the finger with the most alligators. There is no alligators on the fingers, therefore none of them qualify. Until you qualify what supreme means, all beings are on equal playing field.
So so if you really want some probing into the word supreme, we can. So let's say supreme in you didn't like powers. So let's say supreme. Let's try this.
We could go with powers. You just have to define it. Like powers is kind of broad.
Let's try supreme in necessity. So the being that exists.
That's going to be very broad as well.
No, because most things are contingent. So most things
are contingent upon a bunch of other contingencies.
Huh?
Most contingent things are contingent upon other contingent things.
Yeah, and there's only one thing that's
necessary,
and it's necessary being, and that's why necessary being is supreme.
Wait, how'd you get that?
I would say that's reality itself, and I wouldn't point to reality as a being. I would say reality is a state of affairs.
Reality is being, yeah. Reality exists, so reality is being. And then the question is,
no. But I thought you were saying being is all things that exist.
So being is noun. So reality is a noun, or a collection of nouns, however you want to think about it, which I guess is another noun. But so if you say so this is the question of like coming back to thinking of the tallest person. So if you say reality exists, okay, so we have reality. So one of two things must be true. Either reality is supreme or the cause of reality is supreme.
Pause. You just changed your argument, and I want to point this out so maybe you can see the flaw here. You're not making the same argument for reality as that you are for supremacy. And you're not doing it for being either.
Reality might be supreme. And
no. What you would say, to use the same argument and the same method that you used before, you would say reality exists and a supreme reality must exist.
Yeah. If a reality exists, a supreme reality must exist. That's true. Yes.
That's the only thing you could state using the same argument you made before.
Yeah, but the criteria.
Don't you find that problematic?
God isn't to be supreme reality; it's to be supreme being.
But don't you find that problematic?
To say there's a supreme reality? No.
I thought you said reality is a being or is being.
Reality is being. Yes, it's the uncountable noun being.
Okay, so then. So God would have to, so saying God is reality would be saying that God is being, right?
Well, you're assuming that reality is supreme being, which I would say is not.
No. I was just talking about being, not supremacy.
Reality is being.
So for example, here's a good example of a simpler way that sometimes I could put the argument to help people understand. Okay. So I exist. So one of two things must be true. So we're entering disjunctive logic where we have two possibilities that are collectively exhaustive. And the two options will exhaust all possible worlds, and both possible worlds will include supreme being. So I exist. So either I am supreme being or being above me is supreme. And one of those two possibilities must be true. So either I'm supreme being or being above me is supreme.
How are we
And
defining supreme?
a simple thought like that, we can know that there is supreme being. Now the follow-up is, well,
You
what
have to define what supreme is.
You didn't define supreme. How do you define
you
supreme?
don't need to.
But
We just ran into the same problem.
You do. That's the
There
whole
was no
problem.
clarification on this at all.
Supreme means highest, and if I say highest in
But by
contingency,
highest,
you
what do
go,
you-
Highest in what regard?
In
if
what?
I say
like
highest
closest
in power,
to
you
the
say you don't know
ceiling?
what power means. If I say highest in knowledge, you'll say you don't know what knowledge is.
No.
I'm fine.
If you said knowledge, that would be quantifiable, because we're
I'm
talking
fine
about
with that.
they're just knowledge of things that exist, right?
So if being exists, then being with most knowledge exists, and then
Great, I'm
we
with
get to
you.
that.
Let's go with that
We
example.
could grant that.
Yes.
Okay, well then you should just. So here's what you would do. I guess here's what I would do if I were in your position. I would just run the argument, and I would run it through all of the divine attributes.
No, but I thought we agreed on knowledge. Run with knowledge.
Okay, knowledge.
Get
Okay,
Just go with knowledge. Yeah.
So
go with that one.
being exists, being with most knowledge exists, and that's true. And so you say, well,
I'm fine with that argument.
Yes.
So are you prepared to call the being with most knowledge supreme in knowledge? Like, yeah, he's got most
supreme
knowledge.
in knowledge. Yes,
Yeah, he's
the being with
supreme
most
in
knowledge.
knowledge.
Supreme in
Then you
knowledge.
should be like, okay, well then I'm going to give the title God to that because it's supremely knowledgeable.
Well, why would you give that God with the supreme being? Just doesn't. There's still a lot that supreme being doesn't know.
Well, so
it sounds like you're jumping from supreme knowledge to omniscience.
Well, yes, because omniscience.
Whoa! That's the fallacy. See, knowing the most doesn't mean you know everything. We granted supreme knowledge. We didn't grant omniscience.
So here's what I would say: is if we put something in the set. So let's say we somehow someday we come to accept that populated sets have ranges, and we believe, okay, fine, there's supreme knowledge being. And what I would say is we just start putting things into the set that we know exist and seeing how powerful or how knowledgeable, I guess, they are. So I would place into the set truth, which is being, because truth exists, and then I would just say that truth is all knowledge because nothing could be known unless it's true that it's known, and that's why I would say truth is omniscient. And I would actually go through and give all the
this tautology with truth that's problematic that we've discussed before. But
so if you're saying that being is just things that exist, this object, this is a wireless speaker, it cannot know things.
Yeah, that's why it's not supreme being. it's a speaker.
Okay, so,
but truth exists, so truth is in the set being.
Truth can't know things.
Yeah,
truth knows everything because nothing is known unless it's true that it's known.
How do you
define
truth
believe
knowledge?
Things? Can truth believe things?
No, truth doesn't have beliefs the way me.
Okay, then it doesn't have knowledge. You said that knowledge. You said knowledge is justified true belief. All right, so unless it can believe something, it can't have knowledge.
So that's going to get into whenever we talk about supreme being, there's always going to be the thing where we don't
this
use
is the
language
problem that you have by using noun and verbs interchangeably.
So
this is the problem we get.
It sounds like you're saying you're not going to use words consistently.
Well,
the problem is this is the problem you get when you use nouns in the place of verbs.
Analogically, yes.
Okay, so you said that knowledge is a justified true belief, and you said truth can't believe things. That means it can't know things. Therefore, truth cannot be the supreme being.
Well, so here's what I would say, though, is that nothing is known unless it's true that it's known. So truth is all knowledge. Because everything known is
not unless you grant that truth can believe things. You said truth can't believe things.
Yeah. So what you're doing is you're going to anthropomorphize my use of the word truth. And
no, what you're doing is creating a tautology on truth and using a noun in the place of a verb. That's the whole problem. Like, let's not pretend that the problem's on our end here.
Being is a noun. Those are both nouns. I don't see a problem. So, but it's just, to me.
But
I just
truth
think,
can't. But Bryce, you said that truth cannot believe things.
Not the way me and you believe things. Correct.
What does he mean?
In what way can truth believe something?
Because so I am a human. I have a brain that has one thought at a time. I'm a creature. I'm an effect. I'm an incident.
I get how you can believe things. I'm asking, how can truth believe
Truth is transcendent. It's not an incident. It's transcendent. It's not a creature. It's the creator. So it's going to be different. Now you say, well, then how do we say anything meaningful about God? Well, it has to be by way of analogy. So we're lucky that it's not univocal. So univocal is where two uses of the word have no relation to each other. So an example of this would be, I saw a bat, like a flying mammal, versus I saw a bat like a baseball bat. Mm-hmm. That's the same word, univocal. They have nothing to do with each other.
To be clear, you're like in the midst of your explanation of how truth can believe things, right?
Yeah,
I'm not hearing that. Okay, I'm just.
So truth is, nothing is believed unless it's true that it's believed. So truth is belief itself.
This is that tautology. So that Bryce, means this is that tautology again.
Cool. Well, I believe there's no God. It's true.
Okay, yeah. So
because it's true that he believes there's no God.
No. But it's true, like in the sense that there is no God, because I believe it.
Well, not only
and it's true that he believes it.
It's true that you believe them.
Yeah, it's not only is it true that he believes it, but it's true that he believes it.
Yeah.
You see the problem with this tautology? No,
so,
of course not.
I mean, so when you say, so this is the problem where we're trying to get into the conversation about.
I really just wanted a definition of supremacy.
In what sense?
Because you don't believe supreme being exists.
In what sense can truth believe something?
In what sense? So truth.
You said not in the same sense as you and
how does transcendental truth believe things? It doesn't the way me and you believe things.
Well, but in what way does it?
In what sense does transcendental truth believe things? Yeah. It's belief itself. And you're gonna look and you're gonna go, oh, well, that seems ridiculous. But that's because we are on lesson 2, and you've already
hold on. Okay. But knowledge is a subset of belief, right? Because you have justified true beliefs. Mm-hmm. And you have unjustified true beliefs.
But it's
unjustified non-true beliefs.
Populated set and populated sets have ranges.
So say it again?
Justified. So, because
no, hold on. I missed your explanation. Could you say that again?
It's justified because being is a populated set, and populated sets have ranges. And
what is justified? No. I'm asking for clarification here. Okay, what specifically is justified? You said belief is justified.
What's justified? My belief that supreme being exists.
Okay, I'm asking you. Okay, no, hold on. All right, so we're talking about truth, right? And you're saying
that's a downstream question. It's too far advanced. You will not get it. Here's an example.
Hold on. Stop.
Here's an example.
I don't think it's about us not getting it. Like there's a contradiction in terms. You said, not only is there a
contradiction in terms, but it's problematic because you keep changing your definition and making them contingent upon one another.
Supreme being. I'm not changing the definition. It means highest to be.
No.
Well,
we're talking about.
Means. I get that.
We asked you about belief, right? And then we asked you about knowledge, right? Because you define knowledge as a justified true belief, and then you used the term belief, and you said that belief can't be held by truth the same way that it's held by us.
Correct.
But
Yes.
now we're using truth in a different method than we just used.
Yes. There's going to be
in a method that we
That's
just
fallacy.
used.
That's called equivocating.
Do not worry about it.
Can I finish my sentence?
No.
You two are atheists.
Can I finish
So
my sentence?
You guys are. God does
Can
not
I finish
exist.
my sentence?
So the only question is existence. And you're
Can
saying,
I finish
well,
my
tell me about
sentence?
essence. Tell me about the essence. Tell me about the essence.
Can
The
I please
essence of
finish my
Supreme Being
sentence?
is so far beyond you. Don't worry about it. Like literally, don't even bother. This is like if you've met somebody. Let's say you met a child who was 100% convinced that they did not have parents. There would be no point in trying to say, no, this is your dad, because he doesn't believe he has parents. So nothing you say about this person will convince them. They have to.
That's not what's going on here, though. That's not what's going on. No, it isn't, because you're having inconsistent definitions, right? First of all, when you first of all, we're talking about supreme knowledge. Somehow you jump from supreme knowledge to omniscience. That's just a gap. No one granted that, but for some reason you just assumed it.
Okay.
Right.
So let's say
now,
let's say supreme existence doesn't know that much. Okay. All right. Fine. There you go. Supreme knowledge does not know hardly anything.
Okay. And then why would you call that a god? Because what if I know more than anybody else? Huh?
You don't. I can promise you don't.
Okay. But what if I?
Why not?
You don't know that. You don't even know that. I may know more than anybody else. You have no idea.
That is true.
You have no idea what I know. But what I'm saying,
that is true. I'll be epistemically humble. You could be like a supernatural person.
No, I don't. I don't have to be a supernatural.
He could just be the smartest person.
I'm not denying the possibility that maybe
I'm not. Listen, Bryce. We're not even talking about Bryce.
Man. I don't know.
Listen. I'm not even talking about supernaturals. I'm just saying I just happen to know more than anyone else. We're not even talking about the most intelligent. We're just talking about the amount of information that's retained up here. All right. I know more than anyone else that's alive. Let's say this. I kill everybody else on the planet. I am the most knowledgeable person now. But by your definition, I'm God.
No, because you are not.
I would be the most knowledgeable. I'm supreme.
You notice anytime, like, and this is the whole.
Nothing is known that's not true. That it's known because truth knows
everything.
Done with and you're going to get hung up on it. Okay,
I'm done with this because
instead of saying we're going to get hung up on, could you address my point? I kill everybody else. I am by definition the most knowledgeable person. I am the most supreme. And I'm not God.
Truth still knows more than you.
Okay, but truth doesn't believe things.
Yes, truth believes things in an analogical sense.
What do you mean in an analogical sense? What does that mean?
Well, you see, this is the problem. You're like, well, I don't know anything. Okay, look.
We're not saying stop.
I'm done.
You're over here acting like we're playing stupid.
Apathetic.
What do you mean in an analogical sense?
I will explain to you. Okay, I was trying to explain it.
You weren't. You were criticizing me for asking a question. Go ahead.
Okay. There's three uses of language. There's univocal, a univocal use of words, equivocal, and analogical. So here's the example of the univocal, the same word, two completely different meanings. They have nothing to do with each other. That's not how we talk about. When I say God is good, that's not the sense that I'm talking about God is good, because the goodness has some relation. They're not completely different. It's also not equivocal, because when I say this pizza is good and God is good, I'm not meaning the same thing.
Oh, okay? I think this is
one. Just let me do the last one.
All right, I'm gonna let you finish. So let me talk.
The final term is the analogical sense. So analogical sense is where there's some overlap, but not total overlap. So for example, I could say, I saw a basketball, and that's where my eyes perceive the wavelengths of the basketball. Or I could say, I saw your point, where that's a mental scene. So there's an analogy where my mind sees something, but it's not the same exact thing. So there's an analogical sense that truth believes.
All right. Now here's the thing. Here's the thing. So you're doing exactly what Facade accused you of a few minutes ago, because you're equivocating on the word belief.
No, I'm not equivocating.
You're saying it believes it analogically, which means it's not equivocally. It is analogically, which means they're not the same thing. It believes it in another sense. And then you read it's fine what you mean by belief. I could say that I know everything analogically. Because what is I'm being, right? I exist. I am part of existence. Existence knows everything. That's part of me. Therefore, I know everything. Like I could do that same thing. But when you start changing the meaning of words.
So let's say supreme in power then. Let's go to supreme in power. Can you exist if it's not true you exist?
This is
not a trick question.
This is the tautology that I've addressed a dozen times. I've addressed this over and over again with you, Bryce. And
unless it's true you exist.
Can I please go back to what I was saying earlier? Because I swear to God Almighty, if he exists, that I had a point that I didn't get to get out because both of you were running your mouths.
Okay, go ahead.
The problem is you make definitions that are contingent upon other definitions of words that are contingent upon each other. And I was going to point out this, and I'm going to prove to you that you do this. Problematically, you say truth. When we asked you about knowledge, you said it's justified true belief. The problem with giving such a definition is, when we ask you, can truth believe something, you say, well, no, not really in the sense that we can. Therefore, truth, noun, cannot know things like us, but truth, verb, existence, exists, fine. Problematically, you say a justified true belief, and then you say something is true. You're using the same word that you're using for the definition. That's like saying a painting is a painting. It's a tautology. It doesn't progress. It doesn't define. And then you're using the word belief as part of knowledge, and then you're saying truth is knowledge. Well, the problem is you can't have knowledge without a belief, which can't be true unless you believe it. And that's a tautology.
You are
the whole problem is that you're basing the words themselves.
I could map it all out if you wanted, but you are intentionally not getting it.
Bryce, I swear to you upon all that exists.
I am genuinely confused. Because
I swear to you upon all that exists that I have genuinely listened to your definitions, and that you have used these definitions inconsistently, and they must be. Let me finish a sentence, please.
That's the problem. You're using
them inconsistently and contingently upon other things that you must then define. That is the problem, Bryce. Because if you say it is a problem, because it's not like you're talking to a bunch of idiots here.
I'm not pretending to not. So we agree that this wireless speaker can't believe things, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it exists. And it's true that it exists.
Hold on, Bryce.
And you can say, "Oh, well, you're using the word in different senses." Yeah,
I'm done. I'm done with you, dude. I'm done with the conversation. Because you're not willing to have an honest conversation anymore. This is it. It's out the window.
Let's take it back to the mathematical then. If an x exists, an x with most y among x's exists. Can we agree that's true?
I agree that if you give a proposition of x or
it is true. It's always true. It doesn't matter when I plug in.
You're giving a proponent that we can measure, Bryce. Yes, I agree. When you give something that is measurable, that you can measure it. That's the whole point of a measurement.
You're confusing your epistemology with ontology. I can
what I'm saying is,
it's not. So
blind you. You would not be able to measure anything, and it would still all exist.
No.
Things
so
exist
Bryce.
even
So
if
Bryce.
you don't things exist
Bryce,
even if you don't believe them.
Listen.
Bryce.
We could grant that the x with the most y exists, right? Yeah. You're qualifying it. But saying that the most supreme x exists, now that raises the question, what do you mean?
I'm going to prove you wrong if you shut the hell up for a minute.
I'm making the distinction. The existence
both of you
of
shut the hell up.
And the essence of supreme being.
Lizards exist. Therefore, a lizard with the most nipples exists.
Does a what with the most nipples exist? What?
Lizard.
Sorry.
A lizard. Lizards exist. Therefore, a lizard with the most nipples exist.
Correct. True.
Wrong! Because lizards don't have nipples! By definition, mammals have nipples. They have mammary glands. Therefore, lizards do not have the most nipples. A lizard cannot have the most nipples.
Yes, it does. Yes,
No, it cannot! Because the most number of nipples it can have is 0, which is the same as saying it doesn't have nipples.
If a triangle exists,
You're done! A triangle with the most sides can't exist because a triangle with 3 sides is the definition of a triangle.
Hey guys, hold up.
I promise you I'll get it.
I'm done. I'm done.
Okay, listen, just listen. If a lizard exists, a lizard with the most nipples exists. Because there's one of two possibilities. Possibility one, every lizard has 0 nipples. In which case, every lizard is a lizard with the most nipples, and
that means that a lizard with nipples does not exist. That is the same.
A lizard with the most? Yeah.
That means that a lizard with the most nipples does not exist.
No, it does exist because the most nipples is 0.
So how many lizards exist? Then answer the question, Bryce. I swear to God, answer the question. If the number of lizards that exist with nipples is 0, how many lizards with nipples exist?
Okay, so if you're changing the set to lizards with nipples, it's not a populated set.
Therefore, lizards with nipples, the most nipples, cannot exist because lizards don't have nipples.
So, yeah, I'm not denying if you change the set.
That's the whole point, Bryce.
No, it's not. Okay, listen. You're saying, okay, there's 2 sets you could use. And you're really beating your head against the wall. I don't know why, but listen. There's 2 sets we could use. We could use the set lizards. That's a populated set because we know that there's lizards.
And I'm asking for the range of lizards that exist with nipples.
I tried to explain. I'm so directly answering you here. So
okay. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt.
Set could be lizards with nipples, and that might be empty. Now you'll say, "Oh, I know it's empty." Really? What if there's some weird Chinese lab and they're growing lizards that have nipples? I don't know what the Chinese
By definition, lizards can't have nipples.
I think only mammals have nipples, right?
That is the point I was making from the statement. If you knew what a lizard was, you'd know it's a reptile, and it cannot have nipples because lizards, which are reptiles, don't have nipples. They're exclusive to mammals.
But you could make a chimera lizard that has
You
nipples.
could make up a wizard that can create lizards with 1 billion nipples on them, but we're just in a fantasy. That's not the point. I can imagine a lizard with nipples all over its body, but that's not reality, Bryce.
Which set are you using? Is your set lizards or lizards with nipples? There's 2 different sets. That's 2 different
lizards
sets.
In general. Therefore, all lizards which contain a number of nipples that is equal to 0.
Yeah, but
if you included every lizard on the earth, the total number of nipples would be 0.
You are intentionally not understanding this. Calm yourself down, gain control of your emotions. Let's say if a triangle exists, a most 4-sided triangle exists, which is true because every triangle is.
But by definition, a triangle has 3 sides.
That would be a contradiction. There's no
4-sided
triangle, so it wouldn't be a most 4-sided.
Therefore, there cannot be a most 4-sided triangle. And by the same property that a lizard is not a mammal, a lizard with the most nipples cannot exist.
Right now. Calm down.
You're just not listening.
So if it has 4 sides, then it's a non-triangle. So it can't be a most 4-sided triangle because it wouldn't be a triangle. So it's like saying the most non-triangle triangle exists.
Exactly. And that every triangle is a most non-triangle triangle because they're equally tied for it. If it's a tie, then every member of the range, if the range is 0, then every member of the set is a superlative.
That's a set,
So the
not
range
a range.
is the range is the difference between the minimum and the maximum. So let's
the
say
problem is that when you have a set of 0, that's the set, not the range.
But Bryce, here's the thing. So like you said, the range is the difference between the minimum and the maximum, and so I totally agree with that.
And the range could be
but
0.
here's the thing. So the thing, but like in order to describe what the minimum,
a set can be 0, a range cannot.
Right. So if
range can be 0.
No, it cannot.
No, it cannot. Yeah, it can.
Okay.
No. Give me a range which contains 0 things. Give me a range which contains 0 things.
Give you a range of 0.
So give me a range that has 0 things.
Range is a property of inhabited sets. Yeah. If there's nothing in a set, then it's not going to have a range.
Thank you.
Well, yeah. So
wait. Did you just agree?
Inhabited by only one. The range.
Did you just agree?
So for example, the
no. If it's inhabited by one thing, then the range is that. So if the set was 3, then the range will be 3 to 3.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
But if there's nothing in a set, there isn't a range.
There is no range. I'm agreeing with you that.
Okay. Well, that's not. It sounds like that wasn't what you were saying.
So here's the whole point that I was just pointing out with the whole lizard thing. Because there is a set of 0 lizards,
and it's not an inhabited set. Yeah, you're right. If you're saying the set is lizards with nipples, that's an uninhabited set. If you're saying the set is lizards, that's an inhabited set.
Lizards as creatures without nipples. That is how we have been able to come to this conclusion. Do you agree?
Lizards have nipples.
The answer is no. Go for it. They're reptiles.
They don't have mammary glands. They don't have
that's why we name mammals after boobs. I like it.
Yeah, you get it. Mammary glands. It's the same thing. Yeah, you got it. Wow, language.
So Bryce, I get the point that I want to make. So when we define a range, in order for you to have a range, you said it's the boundary of the greatest and the least, right?
The difference between the maximum and minimum. Yes.
Right. Okay. So in order to talk about the maximum and the minimalist, you're going to have to define what that is. You're going to have to define greatest. So like, if we're talking about the range, like if I said the range of even numbers between 0 and 9. No.
Okay, that's not infinite.
yeah. That it wouldn't be a range then if we kept going. So let's say it's the range between I said 0. The range between 0. If I gave you the numbers, even numbers, the range is 0 and 9, right? Okay. And so it'd be 2, 4, 6, 8, right?
Correct.
Now we're qualifying how we describe how we rank these things, and we're talking about which one has the most.
Yes.
Right. So you're qualifying it, but if it was unqualified, then you couldn't talk about what's the minimum and what's the maximum. That was my point about talking about putting Karl Marx, a hydrogen atom, Moby Dick, and a dragon's tail all within a set.
So
because they wouldn't be defined, and I want you to tell me what would be the range of those 4 things.
So the range would be undefined, but an undefined range is still a range. So for example, if we were to say,
but if it's undefined, it's not a range. A range is by definition. No, the range is the difference between the minimum and the maximum.
Yes, and that number can be undefined. So for example, if the set, so we take the little curly Q brackets and we put X, Y, Z in there, the range is not defined. So an undefined range, still a range. An infinite range is still a range.
Okay, so if you're saying the range is just the boundary of the set. If you're saying you're not going to define the boundary, you're saying you don't have one.
I'm saying I don't know what it is. So undefined.
But that's very different. That's very different.
Undefined means not known, not non-existent.
I'd also like to point out that infinity in ranges doesn't really exist.
Infinite ranges? No, it does. If you take the range of all numbers.
But it's not. There's no boundary. What will be the range of the infinite numbers?
Infinite. It's an infinite range.
Yeah.
That's not a range.
If you just Google that,
it's the boundary of the set.
An infinite range is a range. a non-defined range is a range. They're just not defined ranges, and they're just not finite ranges.
Didn't you not say that the range is the difference between the minimum and the maximum?
Yes, and the difference.
Hold on. And in order to know the difference between the minimum and the maximum, you need a minimum. You need a maximum
and a maximum.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If it's infinite, you do not have a maximum.
If I have infinite minimum and infinite maximum, I have it.
You do no. You don't have a maximum. It's infinite. That is how that works.
No, there's an infinite range. Okay, let's see. So maybe I should define range different.
If you just Google that real quick, you'll find out that infinite doesn't exist as a range.
So there's no
mathematically
range.
Mathematically, it does not.
What's the range of numbers?
Well, you could say countable numbers.
What's the range of numbers? I mean, all numbers, imaginary.
That's a set.
Unimaginary.
It's a set of numbers. It's not
tell me, what do you think the range of numbers are? What do you think the range of numbers are?
Decimals. It's infinite. The range is infinite.
No, that's not the range. All you're doing when you say infinite, you're describing the set. You're not telling me what the range is.
Yeah, the range is infinite. So the
range, that's a description. If infinity is the description of a set, the range is the difference between the maximum and the minimum.
Yep.
Okay.
And you could
give
ranges within numbers.
This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, but
can you just Google the definition of range real quick?
Okay, real quick. So here, I say, let me give you an option. Pick a number, any number you would like. What's the range of options I've given you?
You haven't.
I didn't give an infinite range. Isn't a range? This is
it's not
motivated. So motivated to deny the obvious.
Okay. All right. What's the okay? I'm gonna give you a set, and the set is infinite numbers. What is the max number? What's the max?
There is no maximum.
What's the minimum?
Right. Infinite. So if there's no maximum, there cannot be a range because the range is defined by the difference between the maximum and the minimum.
All right. Let's take a look here.
But, okay, can you acknowledge what I said?
Use integers starting at same value, counting up forever. Suppose the iota range. Yeah. So I've never met anybody who says that ranges can't be.
Can you acknowledge what I said? So, Bryce, I use your definition, right? Which is the right definition. The range is the difference between the maximum and the minimum. Now, I asked you what the maximum was in the infinite set. You said there is no maximum. So, but by logical necessity, there cannot be a range because the range is defined as the difference between the maximum and the minimum. And by your own admission, there is no maximum.
Well, there's an infinite maximum. The maximum is infinite.
No, there's not.
If the maximum is not infinite, what is it?
It isn't.
It
does not exist.
I've never met in my entire life anyone who says that there's no such thing as an infinite range. So
can you just Google it real quick? Because mathematicians say so.
More power to you.
Bryce, you said that. Bryce, you said that.
PhDs and mathematicians say so. PhDs and
I've just seen all these websites about infinite ranges, so it's weird. But I guess I should have had them consult you two, because then they'd have known.
Can you just Google can infinite be a range?
Let me think it through.
Can you just Google it real quick? Can you just Google it real quick? I mean, I can show you if you want. I mean, I'd rather just you Google it yourself. If you Google words,
tell me about that there's no infinite ranges.
Can infinite be a range? Just Google it, bro. Just Google it.
Is there? You did, and it says there's infinite ranges, broski.
Where? Give me the site. I will pull it up right now and put it on the screen for you.
Okay, let's put some money on it. I will wager $50,000 right now that infinite ranges exist.
Guys, everybody, Google the words "Can infinite be a range?"
I just did,
and see what you get. It will say infinity does not have a range.
Oh, that's from Quora. That doesn't count. That's some user-submitted nonsense.
Mathnasium. Infinity is best described as a concept or idea rather than a concrete number. Infinity is often treated as a number that can be used to count or measure things, but it is not considered a natural or real number. Nothing is bigger than infinity, and infinity is not odd or even.
Did I say
infinity describes the set?
No,
infinity describes the set.
Infinity is a set.
So the range can't be infinite. There can't be an infinite range.
No,
by
the
saying that
range
it is
are the
infinite,
boundaries.
it cannot have a maximum.
It's the
So if I
boundaries. It's
say- So when I say pick a number, any number you want, the range of options
That's a
is
set.
finite.
That's a set of options.
hey,
Yeah,
hey guys,
the set
I'm
of
gonna let
options
There's
is
a difference
range.
in a range and a set.
guys.
Oh,
I'm gonna
goodness.
let y'all continue.
Goodness.
But like,
No,
I gotta
I'm
get
done.
ready to
I
go
was
feed
done
the
with
kid.
this like 40 minutes ago. Especially because I
Alright,
kept
have
getting cut
fun.
off.
Well,
Range.
I wanted to thank Bryce for coming on again, man. It was more heated this time, but it was no less fun. At least for me, I had fun.
My closing
Hey,
2-second thought is
Okay.
if a person exists, a tallest person exists, if being exists, supreme being exists, even if you're clueless what the word supreme means, then don't stress it.
Okay.
Okay.
Hey man, whoa.
I want to count that as last word of the show, but I also want to shout out Justin Yahooligan in chat for bringing everybody over from Matters Now and wherever else you guys come from. Thank you so much for joining in and chatting, because that's like a bunch of stuff going off in chat. Really appreciate it. AAA, next week, do we have anybody lined up? Because
Yes, a guy who's going to be bringing on, I think, the teleological argument for God. I forget his name, but I found him. Yeah, I found him on the same channel.
Bye, Bryce.
That I found him on the same channel that you have found Bryce on. So,
gotcha. Okay, cool. Yeah, appreciate it. Matters Now is about to go live, so go over to Matters Now if you're not already subscribed to them. They do pre-shows, they do post-shows of debates, and they do debates on their own for things like Modern Day Debate, which if you haven't seen, go check out his channel as well. James, he's a cool guy. They're a little more formal than we are most of the time, probably a little less heated, but nonetheless, go check them out. Thank you guys again for jumping in chat and joining us. We'll see you guys next week if you decide you want to tune in again.